I am resilient, I trust the movement, I negate the chaos, uplift the negative. I'll show up at the table again and again and again. I'll close my mouth and learn to listen. Whoa, whoa, oh, oh. 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 These times are poignant, the winds have shifted. It's all we can do to stay uplifted. Pipelines through backyards, wolves howling out fronts. Yeah, I got my crew, but truth is what I want. Realigned and on point, power to the peaceful, prayers to the waters, women at the center, all vessels open to give and receive. Let's see the system brought down to its knees. Whoa, whoa, oh, oh. Whoa, whoa, oh, oh. Whoa, whoa, oh, oh. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Whoa, whoa, oh, oh. Whoa, whoa, oh, oh. Whoa, whoa, oh, oh. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Ooh, ooh, ooh. I'm made of thunder, I'm made of lightning, I'm made of dirt, yeah, made of the fine things. My father taught me that I'm a speck of dust and this world was made for me. So let's go and try our luck, said I've got my roots down, 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 down deep. I've got my roots down, 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 down deep. I've got my roots down, down, down deep. I've got my roots down, down, down deep. So what are we doing here? What has been done? What are you gonna do about it when the world comes undone? My voice feels tiny, and I'm sure so does yours. Put us all together, make a mighty the movement, I negate the chaos, uplift the negative. I'll show up at the table again and again and again. I'll close my mouth and learn to listen.
Those last three words, learn to listen. Welcome, one and all, to our Sunday celebration on this celebratory but very cold mid-November weekend, or whenever you might be watching the recording of our service. You will notice that I am up here alone this morning and that I am not, contrary to your order of service, Jen Hester. Jen is not feeling well this morning, and so she's staying home. That's one thing the pandemic has taught us. Rather than trying to soldier on when one is sick or has symptoms, it has actually been proven to be best to do what the doctors tell us to do. Stay home, rest, and take care of yourself until you feel better. So, Jen, I hope you'll feel better soon. The pandemic has also taught us how to offer what is called multi-platform worship, which means there are a couple dozen or so folks watching us live on Zoom right now. Hi, Zoomers. Everybody wave it to Zoomers. And so we try to remember that there are always many ways and many times in which our services are being experienced by a wide variety of different people. I also want to point out another thing that I used to call the heritage miracle. 10 minutes ago, there was one of you in the congregation, in this room. 10 minutes ago, one person was in these seats. And then it happens. Amazing. But whoever you are, wherever you are, whenever you are, welcome. I'm Bill Gupton. I'm the senior minister here at Heritage Universalist Unitarian Church, a congregation now 195 years old, but looking forward with hope to an even brighter future, a future of change and diversity, challenge and opportunity. And isn't this a hopeful Sunday morning? If you're with us for the first time today, and I see that several of you are, we ask that you sign our guest book either in the lobby here at HUC or in the chat on Zoom. And if you are here in person, I hope you will speak with Julie Kane. Where's Julie? There's Julie, our church president, after the service to learn more about Heritage. Speaking of after the service, we are inviting everyone to the Great Hall for our monthly potluck lunch. There's always plenty to go around. That's another one of those miracles. On the back of your order of service, if you're here in the sanctuary, or on the second page of the emailed order of service if you're on Zoom, there are several announcements of activities upcoming in the life of the church. Ours is a busy congregation with plenty of ways to get involved. I do want to point out another resource that can help you plug in. We have a new What's Happening at HUC booklet. This is available out in the lobby, so please be sure to pick one up before you leave. And now, before we continue, we ask that everyone turn off or turn to airplane mode their phones for the duration of the service. Thank you, and once again, welcome to Heritage Universalist Unitarian Church. Our call to worship today is based on a reading from Penny Hackett Evans. We come to this time and this space, each of us bringing with us a separate truth, the truth of our own life, the truth of our own story, the truth of our own experience. We come not as empty vessels, but as fully formed people, fully formed yet still growing, still changing, still exploring, still learning. In sharing our individual truths and our unique personal stories, we deepen the experience of others. The time we spend together is made richer and our minds and hearts expand. Here, may we recognize the truth and the stories in the lives other than our own. Here, may we listen and honor and learn. For together we create a shared story. Together we build a community. Together we can experience unity amid diversity. So may it be. Come, let us worship together. We don't use that one anyway after that. Please rise in body or spirit as we sing our hymn of invocation and repeat our covenant. By this covenant, we affirm that love is the spirit of this church, quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer, to dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve humankind in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. Thus do we covenant with each other and with God. And now a special video time for all ages from our Director of Lifespan Faith Development, Lacey Adams, which is titled Kids Rules to Change the World. Let's meet some young people from all over the world who are helping to change the world.
Good morning, all. I'm so glad to be able to be with you in this digital space, even if I'm not in the physical space. This morning, we're talking about the 10 Commandments. And commandments are really a fancy way of talking about rules that lots and lots of people follow over a long period of time. We might be able to list the 10 Commandments. We might even have some idea of who made them, who wrote them. But there are lots of things that we might not know about them, like the context or the culture or the people who first accepted them, who the first people to sort of view them as rules that would guide their lives. And some of the commandments are a little confusing at times. So this morning, what I thought we could do is think about rules. Rules or ways or attitudes that we can take in as part of our daily life that might improve our lives. And that if we all did them, if we all followed those rules, they could become the commandments that help us change the world. And to do that, I actually want to focus on a few kid activists that are working to change our world right now, today, and the things that they are teaching us. Now, I don't really have the time to tell you all of the cool things that these young activists are doing, but with their pictures here on the screen, you'll also see where they live and how old they are, and the thing their cause, the thing that they're working on. I found out about these kids from this fabulous Washington Post article, but I will make sure that you have access to that link. And kids, don't worry, you're actually going to get to learn more about each of these young activists later on this morning. So, what can we learn from kids changing the world? From Alice and her quest to pick up trash on the coastlines of Italy, we can learn that sometimes we start small, and that's okay. From Dimitri, who's working to green a pirate festival in Florida, we can learn that sometimes when our efforts to make a change don't work the first time, that's not a reason to give up. It's just a reason to try again. From Genesis, who's an animal rights activist and environmentalist, we find we can learn that our personal choices, like hers to become a vegetarian and then a vegan, can actually help to lead to other bigger changes, like her family becoming vegans. And now their work to encourage meatless Mondays in the state of California. Hafez here in India actually saw a problem of ocean trash and focused on his science fair project on that problem and possible solutions. And that science fair project has led to the creation of a model of a ship that would be able to move through the ocean and capture some of the capture and sort the trash. And he's now working to get that model made into a real life boat. Koa here saw the natural disasters happening in his home of Brazil and thought, what can I do? I'll plant a tree. Well, that tree led to him becoming an ambassador for an organization called Plants for the Planet, teaching us that we can each connect with something bigger, increasing our impact. Mamona here is the youngest programmer on the Mali robotics team, and she is teaching each of us that we can encourage ourselves to do something that we might not have done before, and that we can also encourage others to do it, which is what she's doing, encouraging more girls to get into programming. Melanie teaches us that not knowing that can sometimes lead to learning. Melanie had an experience where she saw online bullying and didn't know what to do about it. And her quest for learning has led her to teach other young people how to address online bullying. Nadia and Lincoln teach us that it's great to ask questions. When Nadia's best friend Lincoln got cancer, she asked tons of questions and tried to figure out more about Lincoln's experience. And together they wrote a book called My Friend Lincoln. And now they're writing books about other kids with childhood cancer and using those books and the proceeds from them to raise money for those families and for childhood cancer research. Shauna Grant teaches us that one moment and one person matters. That's how she became a gun control and nonviolence advocate when a friend of hers was a victim of gun violence. Now she talks out about the experience of gun violence in her neighborhood as a kid of color. Sidney Keys teaches us that our experiences matter. He took his experience of not finding protagonists that looked like him to turn into a national book club called Books for Bros. William Winslow teaches us that we can take action and ask folks to join us in that action. When William first found out, when he was much younger, about childhood hunger, his first reaction was to go down to the grocery store and encourage adults to buy food to bring to a food bank. Well, that's become an entire organization called Kids for Food. Through these kids and their experiences, this should teach all of us that one person, that's you and me, can inspire change, that we really can change the world. We can do that locally, we can do that in our homes, on our beaches, in our waterways, but we can also take that personal action and that local action and get a big, big result. And that's how we make rules, like how these kids rule the world, and turn them into commandments that more and more and more people can follow. I hope you are inspired by these kids and thinking about your own experience of rules and commandments, and find a way to take your experiences and catapult them into the world.
As our children and teachers leave the sanctuary this morning for their activities, let's sing this week's Children's Recessional. The words will appear on your screen.
I'm Erin Walzewski, and I'm here to talk about our Sharing Our Abundance today. Today we're talking about the 10 Commandments, what the 10 Commandments are, and what your 10 Commandments might be. I would hazard a guess that for most of us, in your personal 10 Commandments, there might be something along the lines of help people who are less fortunate than you. help people who are less fortunate than you. That's the mission of Interparish Ministry, and it's one of the reasons that we're supporting them today and one Sunday every month. As many of you know, but if you're a visitor, I'll explain again, every week our Sharing Our Abundance offering goes outside of our church to other organizations and charities, both here in Cincinnati and across the state and across the country, and sometimes even around the world. Today, with a connection to our own 10 commandments, we'll be thinking about our own families and friends as we go into the Thanksgiving season, thinking about Interparish Ministry's ability to offer food and clothing and other help for people who are less fortunate than themselves through Interparish Ministry's offering today. Thank you. These offerings are gratefully received. Please be on the lookout next month. We'll be doing a special Interparish Ministry offering for their holiday store and offering an activity, an intergenerational opportunity to buy the gifts that go toward the Interparish Ministry's holiday outreach program.
Thank you, Aaron, and thank you, everyone. Did you notice what our music director, Les Tacey, was playing right there? There have been and will continue to be subtle Easter eggs of so-called commandments throughout today's service, and that tune was one of them. Live Like You Were Dying by Tim McGraw. There could hardly be any better advice than that. Always remember that life is a limited time offer, so live every day like you were dying. I mentioned Easter eggs today, and those of you who are particularly eagle-eyed or who are very attentive to detail may have already noticed, whether you're here in the sanctuary and drove by our sign out front or whether you clicked in online, that the title of today's service is 10 Commandments. Not the 10 Commandments, but 10 Commandments. Grammar geeks will tell us that the is a definitive article, meaning that it refers to a specific thing, something definitive. I own several ties, but this is the tie that I am wearing today. There's only one, this one, the tie. When someone says the 10 Commandments, they are probably referring to a set of thou shalts and thou shalt nots that appear in chapter 20 of the book of Exodus in the Hebrew Scriptures, aka the Old Testament. It is a list of 10 decrees given in legend by the Hebrew God Yahweh to Moses on Mount Sinai. We are here today to talk about another 10 commandments, or more accurately, probably a couple of dozen other commandments. Rules to live by, as Lacey might say, and make the world a better place. Ideas or precepts that might help us to live a better life for ourselves and for others. But before we get to all that, it behooves us to talk just briefly about the 10 Commandments. After all, judges have been known to hang an abbreviated version of them, think Cliff Notes, on their courtroom walls. And at least 2 states, Arkansas and Oklahoma, have them literally carved in stone at their state capitals. So there are a few things I think we all should know about the Ten Commandments. First of all, there really are two versions. The more well-known and often quoted and commonly carved into stone version from Exodus, and a less well-known and much more wordy version that appears in the 5th chapter of the book of Deuteronomy. These two are basically the same, but far from identical, sort of like some of my ties. And then there's the strange fact that in the 19th chapter of the book of Leviticus, all 10 appear, but they are sprinkled in among a list of laws, also purportedly given to Moses, randomly, sprinkled in randomly, among roughly a couple dozen more commandments. The truth is, throughout the Torah, the first 5 books of what we now call the Bible, Jewish scholars have identified 613. That's 613 commandments. Some are obviously important and timeless. Human laws like don't kill, don't steal, and so on. Others are archaic at best, things about oxen and sacrifices and so on. Still others apply, and you may never have thought about this, only to adult men. Those things about your neighbor's wife and your slaves and stuff. And, did you know this? Mixed in there among the famous 10 and the other several hundred, there's a prohibition against tattoos. Tattoos. But back to the 10 Commandments for one final point. Have you ever noticed that many of those imperatives, 8 of the 10 in fact, are conveyed in negative rather than positive language? Thou shalt not do this or that. So one of my rules for this morning's exercise will be to try to use only positive language as I frame my so-called commandments. To talk about what we should do, or at least could do, to make our lives more meaningful and to make this world a better place. And I'll try to avoid saying what we should not do. But enough of that for a moment, because one thing I think we should do every Sunday is enjoy and appreciate good music. Today I've invited our own Andrea Dale to sing a couple of wonderful and very apropos songs for us, the first of which is titled Stones in the River by the wonderful Carrie Newcomer.
Thou shalt have a microphone.
There's a crack in the glass when the water gets out. There's a dusty wind when the heart's in drought. And the map of the world looks as if true north disappeared entirely. I can live divided or plant, conspire in my own diminishment, or believe in the better world I've dreamt that grows from the inside out. So today I'll drop stones into the river, and the current takes them out into forever. And the truth is, most of us will never know where our best intentions go, and still I'll drop another stone. So we trust in a dim flashlight, and always walk into available light. I'm not a woman inclined want to bet, but it's never failed me yet. So today, I'll drop stones into the river, and the current takes them out into forever. And the truth is, most of us will never know where our best intentions go, and still I'll drop another stone. So today, we'll drop stones into the river, and the current takes them out into forever. And the truth is, most of us will never know where our best intentions go, and still we'll drop another stone. The empty self still hears a call to live in the center of the ache and all. It's there that the hope of the whole world shines. Yes, there still is time. So today, I'll drop stones into the river, and the current takes them out into forever. And the truth is, most of us will never know where our best intentions go, and still we'll drop another stone.
Thank you, Andrea, and we'll hear from Andrea again later in the service. One of the commandments about worship at Heritage U Church is that thou shalt make time and sacred space for the sharing of joys and sorrows, for the congregation, for the people, for you, to lift up what is in your heart at this altar and before these people. And if you believe so, in the eyes of God. This altar is 150 years old-ish. I don't know how old this ritual is, but I know it's less than that. But I'll know too how important it is to the members of this community. So if you have a joy or a sorrow to share with the congregation today, I'm going to invite you, if you're here in the sanctuary, to line up along either wall and come forward and take the microphone from either Bob if you're first, or the person in front of you if you're not first. And Bob will light a candle while you briefly share your name and what is in your heart. There were no emailed candles of community prior to the service today, so we're going to start in person, so go ahead and line up. And those of you on Zoom will have the opportunity to be typing into your chat, and we'll get to your joys and sorrows in just a moment. And now one final candle for the joys and the sorrows that remain unspoken this morning, yet we hold in our hearts. Please join me now in a time of prayer to be followed by shared silence. Spirit of life, as we hold one another in our joys and our sorrows, as we hold one another through the ups and the downs of our lives, help us to know that we are also held in a far wider, far more eternal embrace that creates a beautiful network, a beautiful web. And that in this web we are safe, we are loved, we are supported. Help us as we work to make our world a better place, to know that there are others doing the same thing, that we are not alone as we struggle for justice, as we spread compassion, as we create community. Help us, in short, to feel and experience those connections that always hold us, those connections by which we can find meaning, strength, and love each and every day of our unique and blessed lives. Amen. Let's take a moment now to be together in silence, to breathe and to think and to experience. May we ever and always honor the Spirit of life in each and in all. Amen. And now for 10 commandments, or maybe we should call them 10 encouragements. Commandment being such a, aggressive and assertive word. Let's say 10 ideas that I'd like to briefly share with you this morning that, if we can follow them, might just make all our lives much happier and more peaceful, and our world a much safer and more pleasant place to live in. Maybe even heaven on earth. I'm going to divide them into 2 sets of 5 each, and this first set of 5 is comprised simply of one word: commandments. Number 1, love. No surprise there, right? Love. Love is, after all, the spirit of this church. It is also the common denominator in pretty much every religion human beings have ever created. The Buddha spoke of metta, which is an attitude of loving kindness toward all beings. In a Hindu text called the Anusana Parva, it is written that he who practices universal compassion achieves the highest good. Mohammed is quoted as saying, "You will not complete your faith until you have learned to love one another." Paul famously wrote about faith, hope, and love, declaring that the greatest of these is love. And Jesus, of course, is quoted as saying, "Love your neighbor as yourself," something he's depicted as saying in response to a challenge from the Pharisees, who had asked him what was the greatest commandment of all. This is actually not one of the 10 Commandments, by the way, but rather one Jesus plucked from that long list in Leviticus I mentioned earlier. In our time, in our culture, there were the Beatles telling us that love is all you need. But for my money, Martin Luther King said it best, and certainly most appropriately for the time in which we're now living today, when he wrote this. "I have decided to stick to love," he said, "because I've seen too much hate. I've seen too much hate on the faces of sheriffs in the South, on the faces of too many Klansmen and too many white citizens counselors. And every time I see it, it does something to their faces and their personalities. And I think to myself that hate is too great a burden to bear, so I have decided to love." King calls it a decision to love. It's a path we must choose, but choosing that path can make all the difference. So let us choose to love. I hope you will agree that my next quote-unquote commandment follows nicely right here and right now. Vote. First love, and then vote your love. In the past few days, we have seen what can happen when people do that. When we make a decision, when we choose love over hate. There's certainly a lot of hate to go around right now, but as Universalists, we must always choose love. And it is our sacred obligation as members of a still free society to vote based on our principles and values. In fact, our fifth UU principle affirms the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process. So yes, voting, making choices, choosing among alternatives after weighing options with both our minds and our hearts. Once or twice a year, we get the opportunity to literally vote in an election, which, as I said, I consider to be a sacred duty, but there are countless times every day when we vote, when we make choices that will affect not only ourselves and our own happiness and well-being, but will affect others as well. This week and each week, we are reminded of how important it is to choose wisely, to consider the effects, the outcomes, the consequences of those choices. So maybe this commandment could be not only vote, but vote thoughtfully. Number 3, share. It's something we teach our children and then promptly forget to do as adults. Share. This is a beautiful, bountiful planet. There is enough to go around. But we live in a culture that glorifies wealth and therefore glorifies greed. For what is wealth if not greed? Wanting more and more, never realizing that we have all we need. According to Forbes.com, there are 2,668 billionaires in the world. Meanwhile, according to actionagainsthunger.org, there are 828 million people who will go to sleep hungry tonight. This on a planet where nearly every reliable analysis agrees that there is enough food to feed everyone. What do you think Jesus would say about this? What, after all, was his ministry about? A few minutes from now, we're going to do something that we do every month. Eat food that we have prepared and brought to church with the intention of sharing it. Not everyone will have brought food, but no one will leave hungry. That's how it works. And it's pretty simple, really. Yet the stories of Jesus sharing food are considered miracles. So that's what we're going to do in a few minutes. A few minutes ago, we did something that we do every week. We call it sharing our abundance. Note the language. We have abundance, therefore we share. It's really pretty simple. Simple enough that a child can understand it. because that's what we teach them. The next commandment I offer is a bit of a change of pace. Perhaps a much needed change of pace after the last one. Breathe. Even though this is something that we do about every 3 or 4 seconds for our entire lives, breathing is something we almost never think about, almost never do mindfully, and yet talk about simple. It has the power to completely change how we feel, how we see things, how we experience the world. You know it. Each of us has had the experience of being angry or anxious and turning that around on a dime simply by taking a couple of slow, deep breaths. So why don't we do this more often? Why don't we make that a regular part of our daily life? Why isn't that a go-to skill? Just as important to learn and teach as cooking and communication, critical thinking, and teamwork. Imagine that on a resume. Knows how to breathe really well. A new study just came out yesterday. Meditation, not medication. And it shows how there's an equal positive result when you take people who are anxious and you give them medication or you teach them meditation. What if you were really able to calm yourself when that was what was needed? And you were able to energize yourself when that was what was needed? It would mean you knew when it was time to take a break, to take a breather, to rest. That you knew good self-care and boundaries, that you had the ability to focus. I could go on, but you get the point. The point is, breathe. And then the last of my first 5 one-word commandments is this: resist. Breathe, then resist. Again, we need look no further than this week's election. When they try to take away your bodily autonomy, resist. When they try to take away your right to vote, resist. When they try to take away your right to love and to marry whomever you wish, resist. When they try to intimidate you and bully you, resist. When they try to turn the clock back to a time when there were less freedoms, less human rights, less opportunities for all, resist. I saw a political cartoon yesterday in which Lady Liberty is waking up after a fevered dream. It's based on the final scene from The Wizard of Oz, in which Dorothy wakes up back in her own bed after dreaming that whole Land of Oz thing. Sorry for the spoiler if you didn't know what happened. But the thing is, we're living in a movie that we don't know the ending of. What we do know is that the bad dream is not over. That democracy at best has dodged a bullet. And we know that the next 2 years at least will be filled with many efforts, both overt and subtle, to erode the rights we have fought so hard for in our lifetimes and in the lifetimes of generations gone before. So we know what we have to do. We have to continue to resist and to do it together. For together we are stronger than the forces that want to hold us down and want to pull us backwards. May it always be so. To recap, the first 5 commandments this cold November morning are love, vote, share, breathe, and resist. 5 more later. But now, once again, Andrea Dale.
Before I start, I will mention that I think I'll get the rhythm of the words after a while, and only 1 or 2 words will change. So singing along would be awesome when you feel comfortable doing so. Gonna keep on moving forward, keep on moving forward, keep on moving forward, never turning back, never turning back. Gonna keep on moving proudly, keep on moving proudly, keep on moving proudly, never turning back, never turning back. Singing loudly. Gonna keep on singing loudly, keep on singing loudly, keep on singing loudly, never turning back, never turning back. Loving boldly. Gonna keep on loving boldly, keep on loving boldly, keep on loving boldly, never turning back, never turning back. Moving forward. Gonna keep on moving forward, keep on moving forward, keep on moving forward, never turning back, never turning back, never turning back, never turning back.
Thank you, Andrea. And thank you, Emma's Revolution, for that song. So the second set of quote-unquote commandments I want to offer for your consideration today are in the form of phrases, not single words. The first is take care of the earth. Talk about an imperative. This is quite literally an existential imperative for all of us. We are at a pivot point in the history of our planet, and the well-being of our species is hanging in the balance. On the one hand, there's the path of reducing consumption of pretty much everything. The path of planting more trees rather than cutting them down, the path of eating less meat, the path of radically reducing carbon emissions, the path of, dare I say it, green burial, the path of wind and solar and other renewable energies. On the other hand, there is the head in the sand, climate-denying, me-first recklessness that has put us, despite clear warnings from our best minds, in a place where a hurricane in November can devastate parts of Florida, and perpetual wildfires rage in the West, and droughts in other parts of the planet, and rising sea levels everywhere are now the norm. So what to do? Take care of the earth. That's the commandment, and it's being asked of us by the planet itself in the only language it has. So let's all do our part. If a 13-year-old in India can make a model of a boat that can go around in the ocean and collect and sort trash and recycling out of the ocean, we can do a few things too. You know what to do. It's just a matter of commitment, of follow-through. Let's take care of the earth. Another commandment that I want to make sure rings in your ears as you leave the sanctuary this morning is be true to yourself. True happiness lies in being true to oneself, being able to look in the mirror each day knowing that you have integrity, that you aren't putting on a face, some face that someone else wants you to have, but rather that you are courageously showing your real face to the world. Lori Deshane, the author of the Tiny Buddha blog, writes, "It is painful and stressful to feel like you're living a lie, like you're hiding how you really feel and saying what you think other people want to hear or doing things that you actually don't want to do." Of course, other more well-known thinkers agree. I believe it was Shakespeare who said, "To thine own self be true." And it was Gandhi who said, "Be authentic, be your true self." All of which is, of course, more easily said than done, which is why I'm so grateful to be part of a community like Heritage, where everyone is encouraged to find the spiritual path, the religious beliefs, the lifestyle that resonates with them, that rings true for you, and where we seek together to share who we are without judgment or ostracism. Or as our UU principles put it, where we can engage in a free and responsible search for truth and meaning, as individuals and as a congregation. Now, what better commandment to follow, be true to yourself, than the next one? Be nice. Sometimes if we lean too far in the direction of being true to ourselves, we can trample on the rights and the feelings of others. Everything in moderation, after all. Come to think of it, that could be a commandment too. Speaking of commandments, those commandments, be nice really does cover all that killing and stealing stuff now, doesn't it? So be nice to people. Be nice, period, full stop. This is another one that we teach our children, but somehow don't follow through on so well ourselves sometimes. How hard is it really to be nice to someone? I'm looking at you, driver who honks at the car in front of him. I'm looking at you, driver who accelerates forward to cut off someone trying to pull onto the road. I'm looking, oh, wait a minute, maybe I'm looking at myself in the mirror. Let's try that again. There are a million ways to be nice. We can smile at a stranger. We can send a card to someone who's hurting. We're pretty good at that here at Heritage. We can pay for a stranger's coffee. We can let that person who's obviously struggling get in front of us in line. An extra 60 seconds will not matter, but the good feeling that both of you might get just could matter. We can reach out to an old teacher from high school and say thank you. We can offer to babysit, letting some maxed out parents enjoy a date night. I'm looking at some maxed out parents right now. We can compliment someone, offer encouragement, give someone food from our garden. Remember sharing. We can pick up something that someone has dropped, literally or figuratively. We can listen. And since social media is where a lot of the meanness occurs these days, we can be nice there too, like only saying or typing positive thoughts, resisting the urge to repost negative memes or perpetuate stereotypes or cast anyone ever as other. Commandment number 9 is follow your bliss. I've raised, or much more accurately, Jennifer and I have raised a child who follows his bliss. Right now, Patrick's bliss has him in the rugged mountains of Thailand, where he's helping to teach international groups of young people outdoor skills and keeping them safe while they have the adventure of their young lifetime, like kayaking and rock climbing, and so on. Before that, he was in Hawaii working on an organic farm, helping natives maintain their sacred heiaus and waipuna, and doing things like surfing and backpacking. And before that, Patrick spent a year in New Zealand learning permaculture and skydiving. Can you tell I'm proud of my son? Can you tell he's an inspiration, the very poster child for follow your bliss? Now, of course, you don't have to jump out of a plane in New Zealand to follow your bliss. If foraging is your thing, forage. If writing a book is your thing, write a book. If singing is your thing, sing. If starting a nonprofit that feeds the hungry or shelters the homeless is your thing, do that. All I'm saying is, if something is calling you, listen. Answer the call. Follow your bliss. It'll make you happy. And when you're happy, those around you are happy too. Now that leaves one more commandment. And it's the hardest one of all, at least for me and probably for many of us. 2 simple words. Let go. To let go. To let go of outcomes, of expectations, of our children when they grow up. Ultimately, to let go of our own life when that time comes. Letting go is hard work, especially for those of us who are anxious, who are perfectionists, who are goal-oriented or driven to success, who need the approval of others, who are so-called type A personalities. I could go on, but maybe I should just let go. Much like we started with love, the ability to let go is considered an important spiritual attribute in most world religions. The Buddha spoke of letting go of attachments to material possessions, to loved ones, even to our sense of self. And the very word Islam means letting go, surrender, or submission to the divine. But we Unitarian Universalists do not often hold up letting go as a value to be aspired to. We're about doing things, about action, about achievement. And that's why today, and perhaps throughout this coming week, I invite you to give letting go some serious thought. A great deal of peace can be found in letting go. At least I have found that to be true in the very rare moments when I've been able to let go. So I'll amend my invitation. Today and this week, I invite us to explore letting go. We may be surprised at the many places and the many ways in which we find ourselves clinging and hanging on, not letting go. Let's give it a try. In summary, I ask you to imagine a world in which all of us, let's walk that back. Imagine a world in which just a smallish but critical mass of us human beings, do 10 things. Love, vote, share, breathe, resist, take care of the earth, be true to ourselves, be nice, follow our bliss, and let go. What a world that would be. What a world. So now for a moment, it's your turn. If you've been listening carefully today, you've heard not 10, but at least a dozen or more commandments for living. Yet as Unitarian Universalists, we must conduct our own free and responsible search for truth and meaning, which is why I know that there are other commandments among us this morning, and I want to make space for those too. So if you have a commandment that you live by or seek to live by, say it out loud now, and I'll repeat it so that everyone can hear. And if you're on Zoom, type it in the chat, and maybe Kevin can pop that up for us too. Does anyone else have a commandment? Just blurt it out. One word, a few words.
Forgive.
Forgive.
Self-compassion.
Self-compassion.
Gratitude.
Gratitude.
Serve.
Serve. Zoomers? Not type. Maybe that's one. Type. Anybody else? Sympathy. Listen. Live simply. Patience. Thank you, everybody. I hope you will leave this morning with plenty to think about in the week to come. Namaste. And just as there's always more wisdom to be gained, there's also always more love to be given and to be received. This time, let's rise as one in body or spirit and sing together hymn number 95, There's More Love Somewhere.
There is more love somewhere. There is more love somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more love somewhere. There is more hope somewhere. There is more hope somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more hope somewhere.
Bit more talking too. So have a seat. I know you're thinking it's time for the benediction. But I want to give the final word, the final set of commandments, if you will, this morning to Unitarian Universalist minister Robert Fulgham. From his beloved book, All I Really Need to Know, I Learned in Kindergarten. Here's what Robert Fulgham had to say about that. Most of what I really need to know about how to live and what to do and how to be, I learned in kindergarten. Wisdom was not found at the top of the graduate school mountain, but in the sand pile at Sunday school. These are the things I learned there. Share everything. Play fair. Don't hit people. Put things back where you found them. Clean up your own mess. Don't take things that aren't yours. Say you're sorry when you hurt somebody. Wash your hands before you eat. Remember that, we're about to have lunch. Flush. Warm cookies and cold milk are good. Live a balanced life. Learn some and think some and draw and paint and sing and dance and play and work some every day. And take a nap every afternoon. And when you go out into the world, watch out for the traffic, hold hands, and stick together. May it be so, my friends. May it be so. So now let's hold hands before we go out into the world. gather around the sanctuary in a circle. Or if you're on Zoom, if there's someone with you, hold their hand. I'm sorry, but you're going to have to come up here. First day, I'm sorry to do it to you. All right. And folks on Zoom, feel connected to us here in the sanctuary as we are all connected around this beloved room. And repeat after me the words and the wisdom of former Heritage Church member Jerry Howard. May the Spirit of life, that each of us possesses, flow from one to the other. May it stay with us, and bring us peace and harmony, until we meet again. Amen. Have a great week.